Direct from Austin, coast to coast, and in your face. You're listening to the Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
Wayne Madsen is our guest for the rest of the hour. He's on the street in D.C. Just came out of an international TV interview. Wayne Madsen worked with the National Security Agency. A lot of times when you're watching C-SPAN, they're having an NSA hearing or CIA hearing. You'll see him in the audience reporting. He's just broken so many big news stories here on this show. And he said he's been in the CIA government archives the last few days, had something big for us today. But I originally wanted to get him on when we called him late last week. But he said he was in the CIA archives and their archives, couldn't come on then, was about his reports that are now coming out in mainstream news that the makers of the vaccine won't take it, the doctors won't take the flu vaccine, but they want us to take it. And, of course, he originally broke that it was man-made. Other virologists and scientists have now concurred with that. So Wayne Madsen joins us now. Should we get into the flu thing first, or the latest Blackwater torture, those hearings, and Blackwater killings, and I should have said Blackwater and torture hearings that I was watching yesterday. Where should we start, Wayne?
Well, we can certainly go with the flu first, because that's going to start to rear its ugly head at the end of this month now. We're already in September.
Amazing that it's September 2nd. And they're now talking about quarantines, lockdowns of cities, mainstream news. They're talking about implementing executive orders for this. Do you think they're going to go with that, or has their fear-mongering not taken hold like they wanted?
Well, it's hard to say. We're seeing directives coming out of various state governments, for example, that are talking exactly about things like forced quarantines and forced vaccinations. We had Governor Schwarzenegger basically sound a very dire warning about the number of 1 in 4 people in California could get this flu, and the chief epidemiologist for the state of Minnesota is talking about similar numbers in Minnesota. And so now we have state officials sounding this very severe alarm bell. So where is this all going? I guess we won't know. We saw President Obama urge people to get the H1N1 vaccine. I think it would be interesting to find out if he is going to take it, and he's going to have it administered to his 2 girls and Michelle.
Yeah, will his 2 girls get all 3 of the shots that Dr. Obama wants us to take?
Well, listen, if there was anyone in the White House press corps that had any, they would ask that question, but don't hold your breath on that, because this White House press corps has shown itself to be totally compliant with all their puffball questions.
You're talking about a huevos-free environment.
Well, I'll tell you that what I'm hearing about the vaccine, and this actually is coming, in one case, somebody who was very instrumental in developing the smallpox vaccine is saying that he's not going to take this particular vaccine. He's urging his family and his friends not to take it either.
Break that down for us.
Well, I mean, what we've got in vaccines, and I noticed even NBC's Dateline the other night ran a story on the danger of vaccines, especially with the issue of autism, with this ingredient called thimerosal, which is 1/2 mercury, and also these squalene. These are what's thought to have caused Gulf War syndrome in the troops during Desert Storm who were administered vaccines. I would note also against their will. Of course, if you're in the military, they say they own you 24 hours a day, and we saw that appear terribly in the ailments of some of our returning troops from Desert Storm.
Now, under level 6, and previously level 6 was the highest. Now it's 6.2. It's like their spinal tap. They're going from 10 to 11, a new level of fear-mongering, or on the red color code to some color above it, purple, for even worse. But under the executive order that CBS News is reporting on, it allows quarantines, forced inoculations, all of this. This was originally out in April in CBS News. In fact, we'll zoom in on this article there for people at prisonplanet.tv. And, yeah, it's now in Iowa and in Massachusetts. They're preparing to come in your house without warrants, forced injections. And then Texas passed a law where they're going to take blood now at checkpoints without warrants. I mean, just any excuse to get in our bodies.
And also I saw a directive from the state of Tennessee that talks about maybe having to close banks down, that the banks would be allowed to close for business if they're concerned about people transmitting the flu in banks. So we're seeing a lot of this stuff now coming out from various state and local governments.
Absolutely. Wayne Madsen's our guest. Long segment coming up with Wayne Madsen. We're going to cover a whole host of issues and where he sees the economy going. Stay with us. The good old folks at New Silver Solution. And the website is supernaturalsilver.com. Supernaturalsilver.com. This is something that kills bacteria, viruses, you name it, well documented. They've got it down to a super small nano-sized particle. Supernaturalsilver.com. Check them out at Infowars.com. Supernaturalsilver.com. Paul Watson has a counterpiece to Psychology Today's hit piece on me. But I want Paul to also add the history of psychiatry and psychology with Hitler, the Soviets, and, of course, the Communist Chinese. And I want to put in there what Kaiser mentioned about how it was psychologists and psychiatrists that ran the torture, including in the Army's report, raping the children. So let's make sure that we show that this system works for the globalist. I mean, it's nothing but a group of high priests that... What do you think of this move to list, and that's what they do, Psychology Today hit piece labels conspiracy thinking as psychotic illness, talks about how we're potentially violent and dangerous, says right here that it's dopamine levels, that we're borderline schizophrenic. We're so insane we're hearing choo-choo trains in the background. I can tell Madsen's by a train. I mean, this is really a juvenile trick. He says there's no world population reduction numbers. None of that's real. There's no Bank of the World. There's no global banking cartel. It's just Madsen. We are completely mad.
Well, I ran a story not long ago about the National Security Agency, and I've been writing about how people that work there have been subjected to psychological and psychiatric abuse by the medical department there as a way to basically pull their clearances if they're considered not to be working within the system. And recently I found out that the NSA Security, which is called the Q Group, and NSA Medical are working together now prescribing what they call happy pills. This is Prozac and Zoloft for employees who show that they're not towing the line. So here we have another example of what can only be described as how the Soviet Union handled dissidents. They had these psychushka psychiatric hospitals. If you were against the Soviet system, they thought you were crazy, and they would put you in a psychiatric hospital. Now we see that happening here within some of our own intelligence agencies.
Well, it was, watching documentary films and reading history books about Nazi Germany, most of the tyranny from 33 to 38, before they really started the big official camps, was psychiatry, and it was merged with eugenics, and they were the ones that would come and take your kids and raise them in government dorms. They were the ones that would come take your kid who had a problem and then euthanize them. And I would bring this up. I brought up the famous inventor of lobotomies, how he would do public lobotomies with an ice pick, and he just said that's not true. And in fact, search engine, startpage.com or Google or whatever for people right now on screen, lobotomy with an ice pick. And you'll have mainstream news. And I even gave this to him, and he would just giggle and say I was crazy on the other end of the phone. Who are these people, Wayne Madsen? Are they like on power trips and they love going in and having women come into them and lay down, you have mental illness, I'll help you? It sounds just like a Svengali con artist guild.
Well, when we look at this CIA report on how they treated the detainees with prolonged diapering, extended nudity, you have to wonder what kind of perverts. And I think that's where this investigation is going. I've written about Dick Cheney. I've written about Scooter Libby. When you look at what these two individuals, I won't call them gentlemen because they're not gentlemen by any stretch, but when you look at what these two individuals were involved in, Libby writing a novel about turn-of-the-century Japan in the early 20th century where there's references to bestiality and pedophilia, and we know about, Dick Cheney had a predilection for some of the escorts provided to Halliburton by Pamela Martin and Associates, which was run by the late Deborah Jean Palfrey. I think we're getting to the actual crux of what the last administration was all about.
Well, absolutely. Here's NPR. We just search engine lobotomy with ice pick, and you can click on it and watch photos and videos of them ramming the ice pick into the corner of the eye.